a scion of many worlds. The fact he honestly could not find a better way to repatriate all the wandering armies than flying up with the crown, and then engaging in a duel of balance with the leading champion and general, sometimes simultaneously, was something he felt more than a little disappointed in. He had spent more years being taught than a lot of these soldiers had been alive, and he still couldn't find a better answer. Although that's something else he'll have to change, where the age of majority is on the world. 13 is too young to be recruited as a soldier or sent to work in mines. It took him roughly 2 days of steady flying, dueling, and declaring himself to get the armies moving, and many of them wanted to sign up for his specialized training. It would take about a week for everything to settle there, but he wanted to keep striking while the iron was hot. Or in this case, blazing as news of what he was doing and who he was had begun to spread. He had to ask numerous people to take off the false antenna already, but he could hear the whispers, especially as apparently he'd been getting some hidden help from the grand midwives. They had been telling at least part of his story, that he was literally sent from the heavens. That bit of information was making him really uncomfortable with how it's being taken way out of context. Or rather how no matter how much he gives context, it doesn't get better. Beyond what's no doubt some cult of the moth kicking off, he also has to deal with Zavaya. She's pissed and apparently in the midst of a temper tantrum. Being told in no uncertain terms that her tutor has a lot of work to do has not helped her ego or temper. Gotta keep the momentum. Keep things moving, he mutters to himself as he flies down to overlook the dam. First things first, he needs the Goldlands to end their drought. For that, this dam needs to go. The Her River was a source for many of the streams across the Goldlands, and it started near the Greenstone border. The other river, the Wu River, was dammed in Greenstone. But unleashing just one would do a lot to ease tensions. The mines did not need the dams. The dams were a form of cultural warfare without actually drawing blood and earning the ire of the midwives. Clever, but short-sighted. Much of this world was just that. Clever, but not stable in its cleverness. "What's your opinion, Mistress Gwen?" he asks of the architect he brought with him from Aridus. The middle-aged Fossa is a reserved woman with little to say. "I think tearing it all down is a very poor choice to make," she says, clearly examining the structure. It's crude but strong, made from a single massive slab of solid stone, no doubt conjured by Earth Araminta. "Well, yes. I don't want to flood the dried river. I need to know the best place to put in a deliberate leak so this reservoir is drained into a proper river once more. The Goldlands need the water." Gwen lets out a humming sound and walks up to the dam. Then she starts doing something that sets Jasper's teeth on edge and causes his wings to flicker in irritation. He can't hear it, but she's clearly toying with sound waves. "Not good. We need an expert," Gwen mutters to herself. He catches it anyways. "What kind of expert do you recommend?" Jasper calls to her, and she shoots him a dirty look. "You're not the only one with excellent hearing." "Can you cut this stone without cracking it?" she asks, and he considers for a moment before nodding. She points to a spot near the base of the dam. "There then, cut a hole as large as your head, but stand to the side." "Right, the water pressure. This should be interesting." He notes fluttering down to the mostly dry riverbed. He steps from stone to stone before coming upon the sheer wall that eats away at half the valley. He thinks of how best to proceed. Transmutation. Yes, that is what he will do. His claws meet the stone just to the left of the place indicated, and he feels out the stone. The work is impressive, but dangerous. Any level of sabotage and the entire dam comes apart. He ponders only for a moment why anyone in their right mind would build something so massive to be so flimsy. Then it comes to him. Casus Belli, the destruction of important infrastructure, would be all the excuse Miru would need to hammer down on Greenstone without losing favor with the grand midwives. All the while the Goldlands suffer, No doubt both sides would be tempted to attack the other dam, but with Arumenta on both sides of the equation, then they would all see the trap. So the dams would stand. The gold lands go through drought and the tensions ratchet ever upwards as both Greenstone and Miru begin to slowly starve with less and less food from their major grain and fruit importer. Clever ideas, poor long-term planning, he mutters, and Gwen gives him an odd look but doesn't ask. He focuses, his antenna reaching out and touching the wall as well as he concentrates to get a feel for the entire structure. He crouches down and moves his right claw to the side, spreading the fingers apart and focusing. At first, the transformation is slow, getting him used to the sensation of conjuring a thick steel pipe coated with zinc. The transformation is slow at first, slowly altering the face of the dam until the second half. He can feel the stone starting to give way, so he rushes the back half quickly. The roar of the water exploding outwards is more than a little shocking, and the sheer spray of water makes him back up from the spout of water before something regrettable happens. "You let it crack," Gwen says, and he looks at her in alarm. "Under the metal, there's a slight crack. The dam will give way in time." "I see. Could we safely drain more so the effect is lessened? I don't think I can close it back up." He asks, and she considers. "Will you be using metal again? I am unsure how it affects things." "It reinforces the tunnels. It's called galvanized steel, purified iron covered in a thin layer of zinc. A fair amount was used on a lot of old ships that were taken apart to make the Dauntless." She simply hums as she considers things. The naturally glowing markings on her person seem to flicker ever so slightly as she's wrapped in thought. She holds up her hand to forestall any questions and points to the massive spout of water ripping out of the pipe. He watches for a few moments before his eyebrows go up to see an enormous amount of kicked-up sediment start to fly out with the rest of the water as it turns the white stream nearly pitch black. "Was that your main concern?" he asks as a few larger chunks that are likely dead animals fly by. "No, one of many. Now quiet, I must listen," she says, and he nods before walking up to stand beside her. He closes his eyes and opens his ears further. Perhaps there's something he can learn here? There is, of course, the sound of rushing water, but underneath it is an almost chime-like sound of all the water ringing the metal. There's a creaking in the stone and the gouging, gunky sound of the water and sediment hitting the riverbed some distance away. The breeze overhead and his own breathing are powerful sounds as well, but he can sense that they're not what he's looking for. Although the question of what he's looking for is unanswered. Two more like the first, each one of your body lengths higher than the first and as far apart as your extended elbows, Gwen says, and his eyes snap open to regard the task at hand. "Very well," he says, fluttering up to just above the spouting black water and sludge, and uses axiom to push himself against the wall without falling. He really doesn't want to have to clean that disgusting mess of dead animals, rotting plant life, and dirt out of his armor, clothing, or fur. He reaches out and puts his hands over parts of the wall like trying to do a push-up before glancing down to Gwen. She nods and he focuses. It's easier now that he has had his practice run down below, and with that ease he's suddenly between three massive spouts of water before he simply teleports rather than try to worm around the shooting water. The upper spouts are much cleaner than the first one, which is spewing out what almost looks like tar at this point. The stink of it is really starting to get offensive, but the larger amount of water from above is starting to wash backwards and hopefully clean out and spread the gunk around. Despite the stink, it's likely going to be amazing for growing plants. "What's your opinion?" Jasper asks Gwen, who considers the sound surrounding her, and after a short while nodding. "It's working," she says tersely. "Water Arumenta or Jorgwa will be needed to unclog them when they get stuck. Yes, it's only a matter of time before something big clogs a pipe." Jasper agrees, and as if by magic, the lowest pipe suddenly loses almost half of its power as something starts blocking it from the other side. Of course, excuse me. Gwen simply watches in interest as Jasper gathers the purer water shooting out above towards himself and compresses his sample into a piece the size of a marble. He moves it forwards and back a few times to line everything up, then launches the hyper-pressurized sphere of water straight up the pipe and crashing into whatever's blocking it on the other end. There's a gout of cleaner water for a moment as the sphere detonates and clears the blockage, then the black gunk of sediments returns. So, how long until this dam's water can reach the Goldlands? And after that, how long until we can dismantle the dam entirely? First hint will reach the Goldlands tomorrow. The river will seem full in 3 days. It will be weeks before the dam can be taken apart. She answers him, and he nods. Right. Thank you for your time, Mistress Gwen. I did promise to bring you anywhere you so choose, so where would you like to go? He offers, and she thinks. The city of Battlement Cliffs to the east. My family is there, and it's been years since I've seen any of them. Gwen says, and he nods before gently picking her up. Just point the way, ma'am, he says, and she points to the right. His wings snap out and they launch into the sky. The flight is uneventful, but it does give him an excellent view of the non-unified city-states of the East. They're spaced out about 3 days' travel from each other with small villages and rest stops between them at about a day's travel. This is a part of culture that's going to die. With the undaunted bringing technology and knowledge, the ability to travel will grow immensely. As they approach the sea, she points down to a city with a strange mountain cut in half to the west of it. The cut is oddly clean. He swoops down and sets her down in the city square, staring straight at the giant cliff. There's a strange sheen to the cliff, and there's a great deal of earth and sand below it. Something's up here. Or rather, something was up a long time ago, long enough for plant life to overgrow all of it. All but the cliff made of melted stones doesn't have anything growing up it, too smooth for vines to find purchase. And why are you staring at the battlement? Gwen asks, and he considers. I think this place might have been hit with some kind of weapon, he says, gesturing up at the cliff. That cut in the stone is perfectly straight, rare enough in nature, but it's also smoothed over from melted stone. Rare as well, and usually exclusive to straight edges as flowing substances push out in all directions. I think this area was struck with a powerful heat-based weapon, such as a plasma shot or laser barrage. Why though? What use is attacking a large mining area? Mining? Jasper asks, and Gwen nods before pointing down. There are very large deposits of many metals, some of them mixed together or alloyed in unusual ways here, she says, and he really starts thinking. A place hit with thermal weapon fire, a place with a lot of metal in it. Was this an installation hit by orbital bombardment? Are there other places like this? Towns with large areas of melted rock and excellent mining? A baker's dozen. Gwen answers, and he nods. Now things are starting to make sense. The accident that stranded the colonists may very well not have been an accident. They may have run into some petty warlord or pirate gang and gotten into a fight with the defenses on the world. 13 in total. Even a well-armed and well-piloted ship would likely lose 13 on one, especially if it was a huge colony ship. I'm going to have to take a look at all of them. This could be very interesting. He realizes he's already a warlord, a ruler, a father, a religious figure, and a son. Perhaps he'll add archaeologists to that list.